So serious battles for Avidyavka. The Ukrainian tactics are difficult to fathom. I'm gonna take a look at a Polish article. We're gonna see what it says. The Russians want to conquer Avidyavka no matter what, and the next wave of sort of assaults is continuing. Both sides are sort of suffering from great losses, but Russia can afford it, and Ukraine for a while now has not been able to, says General Waldemar Skrzypczak, so a Polish general. And he warns that everything that Russia is just doing now is just a prologue, is just an entry to a winter offensive. Right? The situation on the front is getting more and more serious. The battles for Avdiivka have been going on for at least a couple of weeks. Uh, Russians are taking up positions around the city, and they're doing it in order to take over the chemical sort of um, manufacturing plants and to surround the Ukrainian defenders in order to sack the whole city. At the in Avdiivka, more and more serious battles between both armies are taking place. According to a Ukrainian military expert, Roman Svitan, the third wave of Russian assault has begun. The I think it's Colonel of Reserve Maciej Matysiak, an expert from the foundation Starpoints, and an ex second in command of the chief of um, counter intelligence of the military counter um, intelligence services. In a talk with Virtual Poland, says that Russians are pushing to Avdiivka because they're a little stupid and they don't really respect human life. It is humans that they keep adding, he said. The expert has that Russian just keeps pushing more and more soldiers. There is a big probability that the Russians will probably manage to conquer Avdiivka. General Waldemar Skrzypczak, the former commander of the land forces, in his talk with Virtual Poland, says that the Battle of Avdiivka is sort of causing incredible losses on both sides. Right? The Russians want to capture the city by surrounding it and by destroying the Ukrainian forces which stationed there. And there is a big probability that Russians will probably capture Avdiivka. The tactic of Ukrainian soldiers to sacrifice more and more troops as they did under Bakhmut is I cannot understand it. You can see that they're using the tactic of losing their own forces, their best formations, no matter the cost, And while I agree that both sides are taking losses, Russia can afford it, and Ukraine for a while now has not been able to, stressed the general. The speaker with the virtual Poland mm, network points out that it does not bring any success, operational success. And while doing it, they keep sort of bragging about the losses of the Russians. It is not a success. The Russians have the capability to send more soldiers to sort of plug in the losses. They send more and more soldiers that fight. To keep talking about losses is making idiots out of Russians, which at this point of the war, um, a misunderstanding. The narrative of Ukrainian soldiers does not reach anyone anymore, says General Skripchak. Let us remind ourselves that a few days ago, Mayor Advivki Vitaly Barbash has announced that the current Russian losses under Avdiivka has uh, become bigger than that under Vuhledar and Bakhmut. So it's at least 3,000-4,000 killed, 7 to 8,000 injured, and 400 pieces of equipment destroyed. The Russians want to even out the front line. Why do Russians want to attack in this direction in the first place? The decision spectrum of the Russians is very wide, says Colonel Matysiak. It might be a consequence of the decision of a political decision and a military concept that somewhere out there they have earned, they have gained success, they have gained something, he says. And then he counts out. To the south, we see them fortifying. So it would be sort of senseless to take on an offensive position and leave those fortifications. And on in the south, if they wanted to go forward, they would need to have more resources. Ukrainians in this part are able to counteract against them pretty strongly, he says. He also said that to the east, near Avdiivka, the fortifications are not that strong. So the dynamic there is a lot bigger. So militarily, it is far easier to sort of do stuff there without abandoning fortifications. The expert explains. Colonel Matysiak also stresses that we might also see continuous political pressure when it comes to the Donbass, or going further to capture the entire administrative terrain of the separatistic republic, he adds. Another reason for which Russians are sort of pushing in that direction could be trying to even out the front line. Avdiivka is a little bit of a sort of a cut in the front line, And any sort of cutting in the front line means that when you want to go to the offense, we will have someone behind our back or to the side. That's the main obstacle. So, getting rid of that will be good for future military action, explains the colonel. I don't see any probability for either of the sides to get anything positive out of this. As Roman Svitan said in his talk with the portal Unian, the black soil of Donbass um, devours Russian equipment like liquid cement. Colonel Matysiak does not think that the Russians will be able to break the front line. The Ukrainian soldiers are relatively well fortified there. Um, the fortifications that Ukrainians have at their disposal over there have been there practically since 2014. The system was well designed, so Russians trying to push there would be stupid. He stresses, however, that Ukrainians have to engage their strengths and their resources. If they didn't, the Russians could break through their lines. Avdiivka, just like before it, Bakhmut or Mariupol, became the main brunt of a narration, adds the speaker of Virtual Poland. And also adds that what about which Svitan said, that it is also an element of psychological warfare, and gives an example from World War II. It was said Westerplatte is still defending itself, and that is that element of hope, saying that you do not give up, that something's going on. Ukrainians are good in information and narration. If they don't have anything anywhere else, they have to push information that they're defending and dissenting, and they're trading this dissent. He counts out. But however, he says that it does not give any real effects. We are seeing a situation straight from World War One, where both sides have sort of dig themselves in, which sort of indicates a freezing of the conflict on both sides. Unless something extraordinary happens, and within the current sort of situation, neither Russia nor Ukraine has the potential to sort of move things forward. So he concludes that he does not see a chance for anything positive on neither side. Offensive vehicles are supporting the infantry, on ground infantry. Svitan in his sort of statement for the Portal Union said that the Russians have created a new tactic for themselves, General Skripczak reminds that not only people on sort of not only my god infantry, yes. General Skripczak has reminded that it's not going to be just infantry, but also the battle vehicles. They will be supporting the infantry, um, but it's not any. But it's not a huge breakthrough when it comes to the change of tactics. It is typical that the infantry is being covered by tanks, and they are that the infantry supports the tanks, and that the tanks support the infantry. Russians have been doing that for a long time. Let us remind that a few days ago, a few Ukrainian soldiers at the front lines in Avidyavka has told uh, a Spanish a Spanish paper, El País, that the Moscow forces seem determined to complete their objectives. You pray, you take cover for 4 days, so that praying that the artillery will not kill you, and then you counterattack, um, attack and after attack of their infantry, said one of the Ukrainians fighting in Avidyavka. The winter offensive of the Russians will be key. General Skripczak adds that the winter offensive will be key. They're preparing themselves positions for a huge offensive. Everything that's happening now is just sort of a prologue to that which will be happening in the future. During the winter, the Russians will have a good opportunity, will have good circumstances to commit to a huge assault. They know that this is a time where Ukrainian soldiers can sort of use to resupply, to build new formations. So, in order not to give Ukrainian soldiers such a chance, they will want to commit to a fast offensive, he says. And that's it. That's the article. What did you think? Did you enjoy? Did you enjoy this? Like, this is a problem that I've heard about, that actually on this side of Ukraine, there's also this tactic of throwing away troops in order to try time and time again a strategy that did not work for the first time. So that's a thing that I've certainly heard. It's a bit worrying, I have to admit. But yes, if you've enjoyed this little reading, if you've enjoyed this little summary of what are the opinions of people about this situation, press like, subscribe, hit the bell, and that's it.